Item on there is in 2017 JTS ridership. We've got a small increase in 2017, and specifically paratransit and extra service rides increased in 2017, but the regular daytime routes and our night side services remained about the same, constant. Something that a lot of folks find themselves questioning is how room tax in the city of Janesville is distributed, and so just some closeout numbers for 2017. First of all, room tax revenue within the city was just over $1 million, which is the highest gross year since the tax's adoption in 1988. The city received $419,000 of that revenue, while $650,000, a little bit more than, was provided to the Janesville Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. So just some perspective on where that money goes. JPD customer service hours. One of the things that we've had some challenges with is the customer service hours at JPD next door have been different than what we have here at City Hall. Folks go there thinking that they can then come over here and we're closed. And so we're aligning the JPD's customer service hours with those of City Hall effective February 19th, and that's from 7:30 to 4:30. Also of note, Plan Commission historically has met at 6:30. And beginning on 1 March, the Plan Commission will begin to meet at 6 p.m. And just a reminder, on 1 March, Plan Commission and City Council meetings are moving to the fire station, given the renovations that are going to be happening here. Just a reminder, one of the initiatives that we started in 2017 and is moving ahead nicely. We did have a small hiccup earlier at the end of the year. But email utility billing, so if you want to go to that website, so our city website /email billing, it'll take you to this website. You can sign up for it. I've done it myself. It's very easy. And that way the city's not sending individuals their quarterly city services, water bill, whatever you want to call it. And that saves the city about $4 per resident every year. Right now we've got about 130 customers that have signed up to do that. And that's just saving the paper that we printed on, and oh, by the way, the postage that we have to use to send it to you. So I would encourage folks to do this. We do this with, my Alliant Energy bill and other things like that, mortgage bills, you name it. So why not city utility bills? Some upcoming events starting Wednesday, February 14th. The fire department is hosting child safety seat inspections. That's out at Fire Station number 5, which is on Newport Road, and that goes from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. February 17th, this weekend, is Downtown Janesville Incorporated's Masquerade Ball at the venue. That goes from 7 to 11 p.m. February 20th is the spring primary election. Early voting is occurring now through February 16th downstairs on the lobby level. February 23rd, family swim and gym at Franklin Middle School from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And then March 1st is the City Hall roof replacement begins, which will affect everything here on the 4th floor, and then that precipitates rescheduling of council meetings, Plan Commission meetings, and other meetings to other locations beginning March 1st. I encourage folks to stay connected to the City of Janesville. There's lots of great information out there. In particular, I'd point out Park Place Views is a TV station, TV program that runs every month in the month of February. We've got the Janesville Business Improvement District that is showcased and highlighted, and so if you want to know anything more about the bid, you can do so. It will run throughout the month of February. You can see that on JATV, Charter Channel 994, or on YouTube. I encourage you to sign up to receive our email pushes. So, when we talk about snow emergencies, we talk about press releases, updates for upcoming events and things like that. We'll push that information to you. If you go to our website /email lists, give us your email address, and we'll just push it to you. You don't have to look for it. You can always call us here at the City of Janesville, 755-3000 or 3177. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, receive emergency updates via Nixle from the JPD. And if you scan that QR code with your phone, it'll take you to that email list to get signed up for that. And likewise, I encourage you to check out the website. Lots of great information and multiple topics. And with that, pending any questions, that's all I have this evening.
Any questions of the City Manager? Councilmember Farrell.
Yes.
City Manager, I was thrilled to hear about the amount of tickets that we issued last week, and do we anticipate, or what is our process to make sure those tickets are paid? Is it going to be any problem with it? Is it going to be like a traffic ticket? I think there's some penalties, etc. What if somebody ignores paying one of these tickets? What happens?
I'll let the attorney address how that process goes.
Do we enforce it? Do we actually go out and somebody deadbeat doesn't pay it, so we do something to get the money?
It does affect the person's registration of the vehicle if they don't pay it.
Okay.
If it's registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles, if they don't pay it, they can't register the motor vehicle.
Oh, that's
Sometimes
great.
it affects their driver's license.
Okay, well, that's good to hear that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. It's always informative. Items number 6 to 11 on the printed agenda will pass under consent. I will read those off, and then if somebody wishes to pull one or more of them, they can light up. Regular City Council meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2018. Preliminary financial statements for the month of December 2017. Licenses and recommendations. Consideration and action on a resolution temporarily moving wards 3 and 4 to the police service building. That's file resolution number 2018-1501. Consideration and action to adopt revised council policy 77, economic development strategy. And number 11, introduce and refer to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee and schedule a public hearing for May 14, 2018 on a proposed resolution naming pickleball courts as the Jim Clark Pickleball Courts. File resolution number 2018-1504. I do have some lights here in random order. Councilmember Farrell.
Yes, I'd like to take off item 10, consideration action adopt revised council policy number 77, economic development strategy, off the consent items.
Thank you, Jim. Councilmember Conley.
I'd like to pull number 9, consideration action resolution temporarily moving wards 3 and 4.
Councilmember Williams.
Number 9 also, and just would like to note, because I know we have several people here that are for alcohol license, that if that's not pulled, which is item number 8, that would be done under consent and they're free to leave after that.
Okay. I will then deem items number 6, 7, 8, and 11 to pass under consent. If you're here for a license, I think somebody's here with a license for that. Those are approved. They passed. So appreciate you doing business in the city of Janesville. Let's go with item number 9 in order here then. Consideration and action on a resolution temporarily moving wards 3 and 4 to the police service buildings. Councilmember Conley and then Councilmember Williams.
I spent 20 years working with the YWCA, and so I may be more sensitive to these issues after my work with them on issues regarding domestic violence, child abuse, and racial justice. But when I saw that this was on the agenda to have a polling place in the police department, it made me pause, because I do believe that it has the potential to cause people not to show up to vote due to lots of reasons. And so I would like to move that we refer this item back to city staff and allow them to come back in next meeting with a different plan.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to refer. Before we do the vote, I'm going to ask the clerk what our options are, available on this, and our timeline.
Thank you, Council President Markline. Dave Godek, City Clerk Treasurer. Your options are to pass the resolution, not pass the resolution, and if you don't pass the resolution, then we're going to have to look for another alternative, and I'll have about 4 days to do that. And, you know, honestly, there could be other alternatives, but not other alternatives that the city controls. We control the police services building, so we're able to get into that building. Other buildings, we will need to evaluate parking, ADA compliance and accessibility, And then if the building owner wishes to allow us to use the building. So those are the options as I see them. I think that this is a temporary solution. This isn't a permanent move of a polling place. I believe this is the best solution. If there are individuals that have concerns about voting in person at the police department, they do have the option to vote via absentee ballot. That's still an option that is available to them for the next 2 elections. They can make one request and get those ballots for the next 2 elections.
Right. And the deadline for you to actually...
To move a polling place, state statute requires it be done 30 days prior to an election. So the next election after February is April 1st. So the latest that the council would be able to act to move a polling place would be March 1st, which would mean we would have to have something for the February 26th meeting. Short of that, we would legally be required to use this room, which, if I understand the construction timeline, will be full of asbestos, and I don't think anybody will want to be here at that point.
Okay, thank you. So, I'll go back to Councilmember Conley. You made the motion. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
I believe under Robert's rules, we can refer an item to a committee or some other method. So I don't think I'm out of order in that. I don't think we have to order it up or down. I think we can refer it and bring it back in 2 weeks. That gives us time for a 30-day leeway to get it done.
The motion is just to refer to come up with options?
Correct.
Okay. Good with that? Anybody? Mr. Freitag?
Yeah, Dave answered the things that I wanted to make sure folks were aware of.
Good. We talked before the meeting, too.
You know, so this, whatever the decision is, it has to be made next council meeting.
Yes.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, anyone here that's got a light on that wishes to speak, or do you want to go straight to vote?
I would like to say something.
What's that?
I want to.
Okay, Councilmember Williams, I think you were next.
Question, I guess, for the clerk. One of our options was to turn this down, so what would happen? Is under the law, this room is the voting place, or is it City Hall?
It's City Hall, but there are no other rooms within City Hall that can accommodate voting. We use this room because of the size of the room.
Okay.
Because if you imagine this room on Election Day, there are, in front of the dais, anywhere from 10 to 12 voting booths set up. There are 2 tables set up where the first row of chairs are, where people are issuing ballots. There's 2 tables over by basically each podium where people sign the poll books. In the back of the room, there are tables set up for individuals to register. Over in the corner by that exit door is where we have the AutoMark, which is the handicap accessible voting machine. And then over here, we've got the actual ballot tabulator. So just to stick those number of tables and people into any other room in this building would not be possible.
Okay. And how long are the renovations going to be for this area?
5 months,
5 months.
March 1st to August 1st.
Okay. So if we postponed it after April 3rd election, it still wouldn't be done for the April 14th election?
August 14th.
August 14th.
August 14th. Okay.
Well, if you postponed it until after the, do you mean postpone the construction?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not qualified to comment on that.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Councilmember Jorgensen?
A couple things. One is, I have the same guide that Councilmember Conley has in referring it. It says refer it to a committee. The city staff isn't a committee, though, right? I mean, how does that? I mean, are we allowed to refer that back to staff?
Sure, you can refer it to staff. There's no committee
Yeah.
that governs this
Right.
kind of issue. This is a clerk-treasurer issue.
Right. And I also, so I thought long and hard about this. And after thinking about it, I realize this isn't that unique, though. You take a short drive up to the city of Milton, and their polling place is actually connected to the police department. You have to drive right past the police department to get to it. And I haven't heard any of these concerns there. It's worked well for them. So, I mean, I guess, you know, I thought about it. My parents live in Milton, so I took a drive past it, and they're under the same roof. But I haven't heard those concerns then. Our police department, I believe, is world-class, one of the best. The work that Chief Moore has done in his department is truly amazing. We are so thankful, or I am so thankful, to have their leadership in this community. The work they've done with the neighborhood block parties, the work that they've done with just community outreach as a whole is truly phenomenal. And when I see an issue like this rise up, some would call it grandstanding by doing this, because we haven't had these issues with our police department. They have been fantastic. You look on the news and you see all would undo a lot of the work that has been done by the police department, by the city council, saying we don't think that we can do that. We can't put a polling place there because we think some people would be afraid to vote. I think that would undo a lot of hard work that a lot of people have done in this community. So even though this is a temporary polling location and in voting in favor of putting it there, its effect will only be a couple elections until we find a permanent place. I believe the effect of choosing not to put it there would be much more damaging for years and years to come, and it would undo a lot of hard work done by a lot of people in this city. And also, we bring up the point of where would we put it. 4 days is not a lot of time to do this. I think it's going to cause a lot of work for the city clerk, which we might not even find one. I mean, 4 days is, we're already down at the 11th hour at this point. I think that if there becomes an issue with doing it there, absolutely, I'd love to revisit it, see what we can do. But at this point, our police department, I believe, has done nothing wrong for them to be treated like this and saying that we feel there's citizens afraid to go to the police department. So with that, I would be voting no to refer this back. I would like to settle this tonight and support our police department.
Councilmember Wolf.
I just want to clarify the motion before I do, though. It's difficult. You know, I'm not sure why this is that difficult of an issue, but I appreciate the speaker's comments tonight. The challenge I have is how do you prove a negative? I mean, but that's a challenge when it comes to lots of these types of issues. We probably can't. But having said that, perception can be reality, and if this is a reality, I don't want that to happen if avoidable. And I just want to clarify with Councilmember Conley, your motion is to refer it to staff, but with no directive.
To find an alternative site.
Is that clear to Councilmember Gruber?
I thought the motion was to refer it back to staff to come back with alternatives.
Okay.
It's not necessarily to find an alternative site, it's to find alternatives.
In essence, we're telling staff to remove this by this motion, remove this location from consideration.
I don't believe that we're telling staff that at all.
Well, that's what I'm trying to clarify, because it could be that this comes back and...
Let me be clear, if I wasn't before. I want alternative sites. I do not think the police department is an appropriate site, and it has nothing to do with our current police department. I would agree with what Councilmember Jorgensen said. They're stellar. But that's not the reason for pausing when I look at this. The reason for pausing is that it can be an obstacle for some of our citizens to walk into the police department for any reason. And voting is a right that should not have obstacles. So I want to refer it back to the staff to find an alternative site for the temporary polling place.
That's a different motion than the motion you originally made.
I apologize.
I'm going to have to withdraw my second.
I will second then.
Okay.
I believe
The revised one or the...
I still have the floor.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Just meant, are you seconding this re-explained?
This re-explained motion, correct.
Okay, why don't we, just so we're all on the same page, have the clerk read how it's worded, the restated one.
Motion to request staff to come back with alternative sites for the polling place for wards 3 and 4.
With, so the understanding is that with this motion, the police department is not a location to be considered.
If this motion were to pass, then my understanding, and I would be the staff that did it, is that the police department would not be an alternative to come back to the council. I guess the concern that I have, and I'd like some guidance from the council, is what if I look at 3 or 4 or 5 different places and they all say no? What does the council wish for me to do at that point?
I'll refer to the maker in the second to answer that.
Do I not still have the floor?
You'll have the floor, I'm not cutting you out.
Okay. Well, you're referring back to other speakers, and I still
Well,
have the
I'm
floor.
just trying to make sure we're all talking on the same motion.
All right, I will yield my time.
Thank you.
I don't have an answer for you, Dave. I just know that forcing people to go to the police department is an obstacle that they should not have. I know there are lots of other places in our community that you can tap for polling place for 2 elections. And I would hope that we would be able to find one. If I can help you do that, I'm happy to help.
Okay. You're comfortable with that?
I guess I would maybe have a question of the city attorney. If the clerk cannot find a place and this is where we vote, then what are the alternatives?
Well, what we have right now is a motion to not use the police department and to refer this to the staff. And the council can debate the pros and cons of the merits. And that's all that can be discussed right now.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll let the motion stand as it is, and we'll see what happens. Back to Councilmember Wolf.
Well, I guess personally, I would have appreciated the motion be just to decline the item that's on the table. I mean, to me, that's the result that's being looked for. That's cleaner in my mind. I want to clarify some of the timing with the clerk, if I may. The election is March 3rd, correct? April 3rd.
First Tuesday in April, yes.
Okay. I thought you said April 1st. That would be a Sunday. But you probably meant the first Tuesday. So that would give till March 3rd to do the notice, correct?
30 days would be March 3rd for the council to act. But you've got one meeting scheduled between now and then. So really, the deadline would be the 26th.
But I thought you said that you have to give notice to somebody, or just notice?
No, the council has to act 30 days prior to an election. That's what the statute says. So notice we give for each election of each polling place, that's not going to be a concern when the council acts. It's just, you have to act 30 or more days before the election. Or else, legally, we have to have the election in this room, well, in this building.
So as a practical matter, in terms of timing, our next scheduled meeting is February 26th. However, we could act as late as March 3rd.
Yes.
As a single item. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Farrell?
Thank you. As the city attorney explained this, is that we would, as the motion stands right now, is that if we vote that, we are precluding the police department from being used. We're basically saying that. I guess my feelings on it, I would prefer other locations in the police department, but I know from experience here in the city that luckily we've had churches, we've had private corporations, we've had others that have stepped up to the plate to do that. And I think as good community members, they have done that. For example, First Assembly did it. And the other thing, I don't know if it's an option, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but we have polling places like at is there any restriction, this is addressed to the clerk, of how far you can have a polling place from a voter? In other words, if we temporarily move to Headley or some other place, is that feasible or doable or allowable to do that?
There's no restriction on where a polling place is in relation to the ward. And, you know, kind of a silly example, but we could set up a polling place in Milton for wards 3 and 4.
Right.
You know, that the issue becomes, and it's challenging with throughout the city, but particularly when we're talking about wards 3 and 4, we've got a lot of folks that don't have vehicles and rely on either walking or public transportation. And so in my mind, that precludes places further away, simply because if you can't get to the polling place, you can't vote. And we certainly want everybody who's eligible to vote, who wants to vote, to be able to vote. And we want to provide reasonable alternatives. And as we looked at this from the perspective of what do we do for 2 elections, a couple of things that made the police services building appealing were it's literally across the street from where people are voting now. If they were to come to the wrong polling location, they wouldn't have to go out of their way to vote. It's just a couple of minutes to get across the street. We don't have parking challenges because we still have the same large parking lot. We know that that building is ADA accessible and meets all of those requirements. There are churches in the area, and we can certainly reach out to them. And there are a couple of council members who remember when we were realigning polling places back in 2015 that we suggested a church, and it caused some consternation within the community. And the council at that point asked me to go look at all the alternatives and come back with what was available. And what we ended up going with was the same church because it was the best choice. And I truly believe that the police services building is the best choice for a temporary move, or I wouldn't have recommended it.
To finish my comments, I guess I would be open to all alternatives, including the police department. I think, in all fairness, if the city clerk and the staff can, say that this is why we recommend this, and as he just said, they wouldn't have recommended it if they didn't think it was a good place. I would be hesitant to preclude that, although I would like to see other options. Thank you.
Councilmember Conley, I have your light next to you with something to add.
No, that was from before.
Okay, Councilmember Williams, you were the next slide I had.
It's been suggested that voting for this to not have the police department as a polling place is a slight against the police department. That's certainly not the way. I'm going to vote for this because it's not against the police department. I don't think any of us are voting against the police department, but the perception, again, is what's there, and I don't want to see anybody's voting rights deterred by not wanting to go someplace to vote. And I know that there are the alternatives, that they could do early voting and all that, but all of us can do early voting, but I like going to the polling place and making my decision at the last minute and and after doing research, not to do it months ahead of time. So I would like to find a different alternative. I wish the world was different and we didn't have to go through this. I wish everybody would feel comfortable about going wherever they wanted to go to vote. But I think it needs to be changed. Thank you.
Councilmember Jorgensen.
I just want to drill down a little bit more into what happens if we don't find one and we pass this motion. Because what it sounds like is going to happen is we're going to have to shrug our shoulders and go, I don't know anymore, because we just precluded doing a polling place, but we didn't provide any extra solutions by doing this. And that, I think, is irresponsible to do. I mean, it's very easy to say, no, I don't want it there, but it's a lot harder to say, I do want it here. And without that, I think this motion is very irresponsible, because what do we do if we don't have a polling place? I mean,
By default, it would be City Hall.
and we've kind of gone through that option of there's really not a place to do it in here with the asbestos in the...
So we have 4 days. If you can't find it in 4 days, we could always have a special meeting.
But we've already precluded that, right? And passed that motion that we don't want it there.
No.
We haven't voted yet.
If we pass the motion,
Yeah.
this one.
And we could reconsider.
So we'd have to undo this one. So I just think that, and I don't think I'm alone up here, that as opposed to hardlining this, there's got to be some middle ground as opposed to saying that this is an option unless we can find something else, as opposed to saying, no, we don't want it, and then not giving another option. Because it's even more difficult than just finding one, if I understood it correct, Clerk Treasurer. You have to find one, and then you have to survey it for parking and for ADA compliance, and it's not just as simple as calling somebody up saying, hey, can I do it there, then saying yes. Then it starts the rest of the process, right?
Correct.
And that's where I think that this really becomes an issue of not putting it at the police department, and becomes very irresponsible. So I've said enough on that. Thank you.
Mr. Freitag will clarify my comments. Mr. Freitag.
I just wanted to ask the clerk, just if we couldn't find another place, could we go to the garage if we had lights and heaters? Is that a reasonable solution set, first floor or basement?
It's a solution.